Xin chào, mình là Đăng và mình là sinh viên năm tư Đại học Bách khoa Đại học Quốc gia Thành phố Hồ Chí Minh, và mình xin được chia sẻ về câu chuyện của mình. Từ nhỏ thì mình đã luôn cảm thấy rất là thích thú với máy tính và lập trình. Sau một lần tình cờ được biết đến AlphaGo, chương trình trí tuệ nhân tạo đầu tiên đánh bại con người trong một môn cờ vây, thì mình đã vô cùng kinh ngạc, và sự kiện này đã truyền cảm hứng cho mình để theo đuổi lĩnh vực này. Đến năm 2017 thì mình đậu vào trường Đại học Bách khoa ngành kỹ thuật máy tính. Mình là một người rất là thích tham gia các hoạt động xã hội bên ngoài việc học, cho nên là khi được nghe về chương trình Google Developer Student Club thì mình đã cảm thấy rất là thích thú và đã làm hồ sơ apply ngay. Việc thành lập và chủ nhiệm câu lạc bộ Google Developer Student Club là một trong những trải nghiệm tuyệt vời nhất của mình. Sau khi tham gia vào chương trình thì tụi mình nhận được rất là nhiều sự hỗ trợ từ phía Google, ví dụ như là hỗ trợ về tài liệu học tập, được tiếp cận đến các Googler, các chuyên gia trong ngành. Và ngoài ra thì tụi mình cũng học được thêm rất là nhiều kiến thức mới và được làm những cái dự án rất là thú vị. Một trong những cái dự án mà tụi mình từng làm đó là sử dụng machine learning để nhận diện chuyển động của tay để chơi những cái trò chơi đơn giản. Một trong những cái thành công đáng kể nhất của câu lạc bộ mình là ứng dụng Therapy do các bạn trong câu lạc bộ phát triển đã giành chiến thắng tại cuộc thi Global Solution Challenge năm 2020. Therapy là ứng dụng dành cho các bạn có vấn đề về tâm lý có thể tìm kiếm những cái nguồn hỗ trợ phù hợp. Và tin chiến thắng này đã được rất là nhiều các cái báo đài đăng tin. Đối với mình thì đây là một cái điều mà mình rất là tự hào về các bạn. Hiện tại thì mình vẫn còn một học kỳ ở trường, vừa làm luận văn tốt nghiệp và làm nghiên cứu sinh tại Viện Nghiên cứu trí tuệ nhân tạo VNAI Research. Việc được nhận vào làm việc tại VNAI là một trong những cái trải nghiệm đầu tiên của mình trong môi trường nghiên cứu chuyên nghiệp, và mình cảm thấy mỗi ngày làm việc ở đây thì mình đều học được rất là nhiều. Khi thành lập câu lạc bộ Developer Student Club thì mình luôn tin vào khả năng mà công nghệ và cộng đồng có thể giải quyết được những cái vấn đề trong thực tế và lan tỏa những cái điều tích cực đến xã hội. Mình hy vọng là trong tương lai mình có thể được nhìn thấy nhiều bạn sinh viên hơn đón nhận những cái cơ hội như vậy để có thể học hỏi cùng nhau, để từ đó có thể phát triển và xây dựng nên những cái sản phẩm mà nó có thể giúp ích cho xã hội.
Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the Flutter Crash Course 2021. I'm Ken and I will be the host for this event. So a quick introduction about myself. I am currently in my final year of study in cybersecurity in Nanyang Polytechnic. I'm also the president of the GDSC student chapter in Nanyang Polytechnic. So how is everyone doing today? Okay, without further ado, let's start off the event with our guest, Ms. Jia Xing from Google Developer Space. She'll be talking more about Google Dev Space.
Hi everyone, thanks Ken. And thank you everyone for joining us today on a Sunday afternoon. Welcome to our virtual Google Developer Space. So we hope you are all keeping safe and well wherever you are. And before we begin today's session, let me briefly introduce what Google Developer Space is about for those of you who may be new to this. So we're a platform for developers and startups from around the region to learn and connect with one another. And we have a physical space in the Google Singapore office. So I know many of you tuning in are probably students based in Singapore. So hopefully when the situation improves and we are able to have physical events, do visit us in the Google office. And so due to the pandemic, we moved everything online, and that's how we started our YouTube channel actually. So we regularly host events with developers and startups from around the region. And Flutter, the topic for today, it has been gaining a lot of popularity. So if you browse around our YouTube channel, you'll also be able to find a lot of Flutter content from beginner level to intermediate. So after today's session, you can also browse around the different content available and get started on your Flutter journey. So and next up, we have a lot of social channels. So do keep in contact with us. We will post our events on our website, on our Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And we are really excited for today's event. So without further ado, I'll hand the time back to Ken and the other speakers. Over to you, Ken.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jia Xing, for the presentation. All right, so now we'll be moving on to the workshop portion of this event. Introducing our first speaker, Edwin.
Thank you, Ken, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Flutter Crash Course. I am Edwin, and along with me is Daniel and Derek. We will be your trainer for the Flutter Crash Course. After this course, you will all be living with a basic knowledge on Flutter, Dart programming, and our own Flutter application. Before we begin, allow me to perform a quick self-introduction. I am Edwin Chua, a Year 2 student studying Diploma in Cybersecurity and Digital Forensics in Nanyang Polytechnic. I am also the head of workshop in Nanyang Polytechnic Developer Student Club chapter. So, what is Flutter? Flutter is a mobile user interface framework for creating native applications for iOS and Android. There is only a single code base Dart, meaning that we only need to write our application once for multiple devices. In this crash course, we will be learning about the different widgets in Flutter, such as how to add a button, list view, tile, and editing text. And at the end of this workshop, you will all be living with a to-do list application as shown on screen. To install Flutter, you will need to install Android Studio, Flutter, and Git. Detailed instruction is in the Flutter installation guide that we had sent out, and we'll be pasting it in the chat. However, before we start developing a Flutter application, we will need to learn Dart. Dart is a programming language that is used for Flutter and is similar to JavaScript and Java. Dart is an object-oriented, class-based language with C-style syntax. This is the basic syntax for Dart. The main is a special top-level function where app execution starts. Every Dart application must have a top-level main function that serves as an entry point to the application. In this program, it will print Hello World. Dart also supports single and multiple line comment as shown on the screen, with double slash being a single line comment and a slash followed by an asterisk being a multiple line comment as shown. Common data type of Dart includes integer, double, string, boolean, list, map, and set. Next, we will be learning how to initialize variable in Dart. To initialize static variable, we use the var keyword. For example, var name equal to NYP Developer Student Club. To initialize dynamic variable, we use the dynamic keyword. In this example, it is dynamic name to. This is a dynamic name. However, we can also use data types to initialize variable. In this example, string name tree equal to NYP GDSC and integer number tree equal to 123. To initialize a list, we use the list keyword with the angle bracket defining what element it is, which in this case is string, and the list name being list of word. Inside the list, there is 3 words, which is Dart is fun. We can also create a dynamic list, which can take elements of various types. In this example, it is the integer 1 and 2 with the string 3. Now that we have a basic understanding of Dart syntax, I will be explaining more about Flutter. Every element in Flutter is a widget, and every widget is a class. It is similar to creating object from a class in other programming language like Python. There are 2 types of widget in Flutter, which is stateful widget and stateless widget. Stateful widgets are used for dynamic elements, which are elements that can change its states while the application is running. For example, a checkbox, text field, and a radio button. Stateless widgets, on the other hand, are used for static elements, which are elements that do not change its states while the app is running. For example, icon, background, and a static text. Now, I will be going through some of the basic widgets that we will require for the to-do list application. Scaffold widgets provides a layout to be able to implement the different widgets. Text widgets allow you to place text as well as typing them within your application. The rows and columns widget creates flexible layout in both horizontal and vertical direction. Buttons is used for receiving users' input. For example, touching or tapping the button to call a function. Alert dialog widget are used to prompt user for data, such as string, integer, and boolean input. For demonstration purpose, we can match the widgets to the application using Flutter Inspector. The scaffold is the layout of the page. The column widget align the two text widget. The add bar and the text widget is at the top showing a header. And lastly, the floating action button is a widget that the user can push to call a function, and the plus icon widget. In Flutter, you can also create custom widgets. Creating a custom widget is useful when you need to create multiple elements which require the same properties and child widget. It allows cleaner code and is similar to using function as it is reusable to create more elements. In this demo code, we can see three names: Rocky, Lila, and Nico with similar styling, which is blue background with the same padding. However, we can see redundancy in the code as the styling for text widget, box decoration, and the padding is the same, and it is being repeated 3 times for each name. However, by creating your own widget, it can help with readability, efficiency, and maintainability. Using the same example, the dog name widget can then be reused for every name that we have to output using the same style without having to copy paste the code. As you can see, the dog name widget has the box decoration, padding styling, and we only have to call the dog name custom widget to output the 3 names on the screen. Now, we will be looking at the example code for each widget. The text widget that display tasks to be done, and the text style widgets allowing you to style the text widget with attributes like font weight, font size. Android Studio will also give hints on what are the available attributes. In this example, font weight has the attribute bold and normal and etc. You can also change the color of the widget from a whole platelet of colors and shades. Next, it is the button widget. The floating action button is a widget that allows users to touch or tap to call a function, and the icon widget displays the additional icon. The row class, as mentioned earlier, creates flexible layout. Take note that the children bracket widget specifies that all children are of widget types. List style is a widget that contains 1 to 3 lines of codes of text, optionally flanked by icon or other widgets, such as a checkbox. The icon for the tile are defined with the leading and trailing parameter. And the list view widget will display its children one after another in the scroll direction. If there is only one child, use the colon, and if there is going to be multiple child, use the square bracket as shown in the example. Using card widget, we are able to style the list tile with a blank space or a panel around the round corners with a slight elevation on the lower side. Next, it is the text field and text editing controller widgets. Text fields let users enter and edit text. It allows users to enter text into a user interface. They typically appear in forms and dialogs. The text editing controller class acts as a controller for an editable text field. The user input is stored in the text field controller.text, and the decoration allows you to place hint text to enter hint for the user to know what to input. And if we want to clear the user input, we can use the text field controller.clear. Lastly, we will be looking at the alert dialog widget. An alert dialog informs the user about situation that requires acknowledgement. An alert dialog has an optional title and an optional list of action. The title is displayed above the content and the actions are displayed below the content. So in this example, there are two buttons, the add and cancel button added using the text button widgets. When pressing the add button, the navigator of context.pop will close the alert dialog while adding the item to the text field controller.text. If the user wants to cancel the item, he will click the cancel button, which will just close the alert dialog. With that, we are done with the theory portion of this session. Next, I will pass the time on to Ken to introduce the next speaker. Ken, please.
All right, thank you, Edwin, for the presentation. Now, Edwin will be going backstage, but he'll be back for the Q&A session at the end of this workshop, where all of the speakers will be back to answer your questions. Bye, Edwin.
Bye-bye.
All right, so now we are going to move on to the workshop portion, the practical portion of this workshop. During this period, if you have any questions regarding the workshop, do sound out in chat. Now I'll introduce our next speaker, Derek.
Thank you, Ken. Before I start our practical portion, allow me to do some self-introduction. I'm Derek, a Year 2 student studying Diploma in Information Technology at Nanyang Polytechnic. I'm also one of the workshop leads in NYP Developer Student Charter. So let's start our practical. So firstly, we will start up our Android Studio and click on New Flutter Project. Okay, can you share my screen? Okay, thank you, Ken. So after you start up your Android Studio, you will click on File, then click on New Flutter Project. So after that, you'll be greeted with this window. By default, Flutter application has already been selected, so we'll leave it as that and click Next. Then you will choose your Flutter project name. In this case, I'll name it Flutter Workshop. And you will need to specify your Flutter SDK path. So what that is the thing that you're supposed to install before this workshop starts. And in order to configure the path, you will need to head over to the path where you have installed your Flutter at. For me, I installed it at C SRC Flutter folder. So after that, you can, if you don't want to write anything as your description, you can head on to the next portion, and for this part, you will leave it as it is and click Finish. It'll take some time to create the project. Okay, so we'll have a sample template of the Flutter project here. Okay, so before we start writing the code for the app, we first want to open up the virtual device manager. And if you have not added a virtual device yet, please do. Then after doing so, click play. Okay. We want to open up the virtual device first because I would like to see the code being reflected on the virtual device immediately. So by default, they will help you select when they detect a virtual device. So all you have to do is click run main.dat. And after that, they will start building the app and it will be reflected on the virtual device shortly. I'll give you a moment. It'll take some time to install and build a package. But after that, you'll be greeted with the Flutter homepage, the application itself. And what it does is basically whenever you click on the button, you will add a number to it. You'll add 1 to the counter every time. So that's the default app. And now, in order to start working on a to-do list app, we'll first need to start removing the variables and the functions that we do not require in the practical. So what we do not require are the counter, and no, that's all, just the counter, and we need to edit some stuff. So heading over to the source code, you would like to remove the in underscore counter equal to 0 and the void underscore increment counter function. Other than that, you also want to remove the text counter. And editing this to list. Currently, the program will crash because there is no such function called increment counter, as I have removed it just now. So after removing the variables and the function, we'll start off by defining the variables we do require in the practical. So the first variable that we require is a list of strings, a variable of type list of strings called to-do list. This will be the list where we'll store all the tasks that we'll be getting from the user in the app. Seem to be an error here. I'll fix that later on. The second variable that we are going to define is the text editing controller type variable, naming it a text field controller. What this essentially does is the bridge between the user's input and the app, so that this variable here will allow us to capture the user's input, so that we could use functions on it. So afterwards, now let's begin creating the widgets that would be displayed on the app. Firstly, we would like to align this text that I have amended into list to the top left. So what I will need to use is the align function that should be wrapping the entire text widget. The parameters inside would be alignment and child. For the alignment parameter, we would like to use alignment to the top left. Hold on. Let me increase my font size a little. Okay. Afterwards, after adding the line, seems to be some issue because there's no highlighting. Okay. Seems fine. Okay, I'll just continue on with styling the text. Now, after aligning the text, what I would like to do is change the text to red color. So what I would like to add is the style parameter. And in this style parameter, I would like to add this function called text style. And if I want to change the color, I will need to allow them to accept the parameter color. And in the color, there will be the parameter for getting the color red. Okay. Now, afterwards, we would like to add our list view that would store all of the tasks that the user have created. We'll be using this function called flexible, and inside the child would be the list view that Edwin has mentioned previously. And in the children, we'll be using this function called get items. And these get items will be returning a list of widgets. Okay. Now we amending the floating action button. So this floating action button would be the function, the button that would be used to add the new items, the new tasks. We'll first change the tooltip to add task. Then on pressed would be a function name called ShowDialog. For now, the program does not run, so we like to fix that part by defining the underscore ShowDialog function. So for now, I'll leave it as a void. Let's call ShowDialog with empty parameters for now, which returns nothing. And as well as the get items, I would like to define a void function for it as well. Okay. For the underscore get items, instead of returning void, we will need to return a widget list. Yeah, widget list. Okay, let's fix this error. Oh, okay, I need to return an empty list. Okay, for now, we would like to define a variable list widget here with naming it to do widgets. Because the program would not run if we do not define a list widget for the list view. Okay, now the program runs. We see that the text font of the list is actually quite small, so I would like to increase it. So what I'll do here is head over to the text style, and I would like to add this font size parameter. is a font size parameter. I will give it a value of in pixels, 60 for example. It should be fine. Okay, let's just go with 60 then. Okay. Now we will start with creating our functions. So the first function that we will create is the widget, the function that returns a widget, the build item function. Accepting a parameter called title that we will later on be getting from the user. What this function basically does is it will build a widget that would be the thing that will be stored into the to-do list. So what we would like to return here is actually a card widget. And with the parameters of child, we will use a list tile with a title, and its value would be a text, which is the title that we got from the user. And we'll add a trailing. Trailing will be the remainder stuff that will be on the row itself. And we need to give it its parameters. First is the main axis size. I would set it to minimum. So main axis size dot min. And another parameter we need to add is a children. So in the children, it will be a widget list. For now, the widget list would contain 2 buttons. These 2 buttons for now will not do anything, but later on, Daniel would be using these functions. So we will be creating the functions for now. So in the icon button, there will be an icon. So for the icon, I would like it to be the delete icon. And let's have it as a black color for now. And the second icon button is slightly similar. So what we would like to do is just add just copy and paste the icon button like so, and change this part to hex underscore box underscore outline underscore blank. This would basically be the checking to check whether if the task is completed or not. Oh, some errors here. Okay, let's ignore that for now. But okay, there's a typo here. Other than that, let's see. Shouldn't be any errors on the line for now. Oh, well, we also need to add a semicolon here. Yeah, okay, works now. Currently, you wouldn't see any lists or whatnot because there isn't any items or anything, any string in the to-do list that will allow us to build a widget to put into the list view. So currently, it'll just be empty and white. So after creating the function that would add the widget into the list view, we will carry on with creating a function that will allow us to iterate through all the widgets and build them accordingly. So this function would return type widget list, and we'll name it underscore get items. Oh, actually, I've already defined it just now. I forgot. Okay. So basically, that's what the function does. but we are still missing a few lines. So I would like to iterate through the to-do list. So what I would like to do is use a for loop with for string title in underscore to-do list, iterating through every single string in the to-do list. I would like to add it into the widgets. And what I will be adding is the build item function that I've created previously, and throwing in a title parameter. So after that, reloading will not show anything yet because we still have not created the input function. So to create the input function, we would need to have alert dialog. So to do so, we would first have to create the function with type void. What this essentially would be sort of the way for you to properly return the alert dialog. So naming it show my dialog. And this one is very important. We have to add an async so that the app will be able to receive it concurrently. And what this function does it will just return the alert dialog with void. Return the alert dialog, but first we need to call the function ShowDialog. It's a given function. So in the function itself, you will set parameters such as context. What context is it is basically the manager of the app. It allows you to display stuff. Yeah, and other than that, we also be adding this parameter called barrier dismissible, and the value will be false because we do not want anyone to not select an option and just leave it as is. So we would set this to false so that they are forced to pick an option. And most importantly, this parameter that we will need is called builder. This will be the value and the parameter that will be building our alert dialog. So require build context and using curly brackets, and it will be returning the alert dialog object. And the alert dialog, first we would like to add is the title, and the title I would write enter new task. Secondly, I will add a content parameter with a text field. What this text field is, it is the input field where user can input their string. And this controller would be the text editing controller that I have defined firstly at the start. What this function, what this variable does, as I mentioned, is it serves as a bridge to allow the app to capture the user's input. So adding in the text field controller that I've defined previously, and with a decoration parameter, aka the placeholder. So with a constant input decoration, in order to add the value of the placeholder, we need to add a hint text. And I would like to write now enter your task. Okay. Oops, I still need to add actions. And in the action, there will be a widget list. This widget list essentially will be two buttons, the OK button and the cancel button. So to define the button, I will need to add a child with text add. And when it's pressed, you'll be calling this function, this mini function, where you will be using this global variable called navigator dot of context to pop the alert dialog. So what this does is it essentially removes the alert dialog. Yeah. Okay. Afterwards, I'll need to use this function called add item. I've not defined this function yet, but what this function essentially does is it adds the user's input into the variable asynchronously. So what I'll be throwing in is the user's input value. I'll be using the text property that will allow me to do so. And afterwards, I will need to clear the input value that the user has input by using the textual controller again and calling the function .clear. Okay, so afterwards, I'll be creating another text button that is essentially the same. So I will copy and paste and change the text to cancel. And curly brackets. And I'll be removing the add item because canceling, so I do not need the task, so I'll just remove that line so that it does not actually get added into the to-do list. Running as issues. Yeah, I'm just missing a semicolon here. Two issues. Okay, I'll solve that later on. Wait, actually, let's solve it now. Okay. Try to find the error that is present. Is the in this function I'm supposed to add another semicolon at line 170. If you are following. And also the add item function is not defined. The show my dialog. Previously I've declared the show my dialog here to avoid the error from previously. So I'd like to remove this function that was located at line 130 and as well as declare the add item function. So now we'll be working on the add item function. The add item function will not be returning any stuff. I'll be naming it add item, but you'll be receiving a title variable so that it can be added into the to-do list. Now to add it into the to-do list, there's a very important function that you need to use. It's called the set state function. So what this function essentially does is it alerts the app that the state of the app has changed. I'm changing and modifying some variables that will affect the display on the app. So what I'll be using is to-do list.add title. That's all for this function, and I'll just add a return. Okay, let's see if it runs now. Clicking the plus button, you'll be prompted with this. and there's an add and a cancel here. So I'll just write something random like running. Clicking add. There you have it. There will be a item here, which there will be an item here, and for now you cannot use the delete icon and the checkout icon. The icon will be done and added on by Daniel. So for that, we have no errors. So now since the app is running fine and since there's not much conditionals that we need to fix, we have come to the end of the practical session. Now we're passing the time back to Ken to introduce the next speaker, which will continue with building the app into a full to-do list app.
All right, thank you, Derek, for your presentation. He'll be going backstage for now.
Bye.
All right, next, let's introduce our next speaker, Daniel.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Ken, for the smooth introduction. I'm Daniel. I'm from Nanyang Polytechnic DSC, also one of the head of workshop, and currently studying cybersecurity. For now, I'll be going through with you on how to create the to-do list app step by step, and make sure to clear any doubts with you guys. All right. So as you can see my screen here, I'm continuing on with what Derek has left us with. And also we have the device here. So first thing we want to do is to change the app bar title. Instead of Flutter demo homepage, we're going to change it to list. We can rerun it to see changes. And after that, we're going to change the list here into something more relevant. Yeah. Over here, we're going to change it from list. We're going to change it to tasks to be done. Now we don't want the font size to be too big. Let's make it 24. Instead of red, we're gonna make it black. There are also other properties you can add, like font weight, for example. Let's make it bold. Yeah, so that should work. And change this list to tasks to be done. Give it a moment. All right, easy. So now, what next we're gonna do is create the same header here at the bottom half. Instead of task to be done, it's gonna be called completed task, because yeah, you're gonna complete the task after checking it off. It's just a duplicate of this basically. Run. Just gonna copy and paste it. Now we're gonna call this completed tasks. And in the flexible container, we're not gonna call any functions just yet, just for simplicity, to avoid any errors in the long run. Yeah, everything should be all right. If you restart it, sorry, close bracket, yeah. If we reload it, hot restart it, I mean, you'll be able to see the changes. Task to be done, a blank container, and just a second. And yeah, completed task and another container below. So as what Derek did just now, it still works. The function still works. Enter new item. You can ask for user input. This is the text editing controller. This is the two icon buttons, and this is the title. As you can see over here, icon button. Give me a moment. Okay. Yeah, basically, if you add an item, it works. but the only thing that doesn't work is these two buttons, right? So that's what we're gonna do in this part of the workshop. We're gonna fix that. So hold on. All right. First off, we're gonna create. It's basically the same as what y'all did with Derek just now. Let me find where. Yeah. So we're gonna add in another list of strings and call it completed list. It's basically the same as the to-do list at line 33. Just type it out. Yeah. So we're gonna use this and create a get completed function. Basically the same as your get items function here, or rather, yeah, widget or function. Yeah. We're gonna copy this. You already know what it does. It just builds it calls the build item function, adds it to the to-do widgets. Actually, let's call it completed widgets, not to-do widgets. Completed widgets, completed widgets, and completed widgets. And completed list. And get completed items. Yeah, so it will call this function and call the build item function to build the card widget, which contains the title and the two icons and the two icon buttons, as you can see here, the title and the two icon buttons. So it's gonna build completed item rather. And yeah, it's actually just the same thing over again. Instead of build item here, right? We're gonna copy it again and repeat, rinse and repeat, and call it build completed item. So it will build the card widget with the two buttons and the title, and bring it over here and adds it to the completed list widgets, which is a list of strings as defined here. I mean list of widgets, sorry, list of widgets. Yeah, so you will return these completed widgets into this wherever this function is being called. And yeah, so this get completed items is being called should be called over here in the list view. Basically the same as this get items should be called here in the children property of list view. And get completed items doesn't accept any parameters. I mean, it does accept parameters, which is a user input, the title, the task they want to be done with, and also in get items. And yeah, you have to change this here because it's passing in one argument, which is a title, which is a type string. Title and string title. Yeah. So it should be reflected here. Builds the item and adds it to the to-do widget. Simple. So other than that, hold on. Yeah. So now when you click on the icon button over here, icon buttons, we're gonna add the actual functions into that button. So I'm gonna create a on pressed property, which takes in which runs this function. Since it's in the build item, you're building an item for the task to be done list. So it should run the add item here. Hold on, let me double check it. Hold on. Okay, yeah, it's gonna it's gonna uncheck the item. It's gonna run an uncheck item function. Since right? Check complete item, sorry, complete item, not check, since it's in the build item function. I'm gonna run this function, and essentially what it does is it removes from the task to be done list and adds it to the completed task list. Yeah, so it's simple to understand, right? And similarly for this, it's going to be hold on, it's going to be uncheck item. So these two functions, they take in an argument of title. Don't worry, we're gonna create the functions now. I'm gonna explain it slowly. So right at the bottom, you're gonna create a complete item and uncheck item. It basically means check and uncheck. So these two functions, they don't return anything. So they take in one parameter, which is title, which we said earlier, which we assigned earlier, and it's also asynchronous. Derek has already explained why it's asynchronous, so I won't be going through it again. And you also need a set state. Basically what it does, like what Derek said, it just informs the program that a state has been changed, an element has been changed, the state has been changed. Yeah. So you're gonna change the to-do list. You're gonna remove the item in the to-do list where the element is equal to the task name. Equal title. The task name is title, which is the user input earlier on when they add the item. Next, once you remove it, you're gonna so-called like transfer it to the task completed task section. So completed list dot add. Title. And I add the title into this list of strings, right? Yeah, and basically the same for uncheck item. Uncheck, sorry, can't type today. Uncheck item. All right. So instead of removing it from the to-do list, you're gonna remove it from the completed list, and then add it to the to-do list. And yeah, don't forget a semicolon, guys. And also there are two errors here. Give me a second. Yeah, it doesn't take in any parameters, I'm sorry. As you can see in the get items and get completed items. It shouldn't take in any parameters. Sorry. Other than that, it should be okay. I'm sorry, let me hot restart this. I'll give you some time. Okay. So if you add a task by right, it should work. Now the problem is why this isn't checked is because we didn't change the icon in build completed item. So you're building the completed item, but with the checkbox outline blank, which is this icon here. So you want to change this to just checkbox, which means it's filled. As you can see, it's filled. So if you restart it again, it should work. We can check and uncheck. Sorry, my laptop is slow, so it's gonna take some time. Also, don't forget, if you have any questions, you can just ask in the chat. We'll try our best to answer it. All right, so let's say your task is to eat, for example. You can check and uncheck, fairly simple. And now, lastly, in my opinion, is the easiest one, is the delete function. So here's the icon button. You wanna add same thing, an onPress property, which runs the remove item function. We haven't created this function yet. I'm gonna set it so that it passes in 2 arguments. One is title and one determines whether determines where the item is from, like whether it's from the to-do list, either from to-do list or completed list. So since it's in the completed list, right, completed item, it's in the completed list, I'm gonna call it completed list. So it basically tells the program later on in the if else statement, it tells the program that it's from the completed list, not the to-do list. And in the build item, this build item constructs the item for the to-do list. All right. So inside the delete here, we're gonna create an onPress function. Just a sec. Gonna say, remove item. And takes in title as well as to-do list, since it's from the to-do list. Now, the last step would be to create the remove function. To do that, you just it doesn't return anything. So it's void, and remove item takes in that's the title as we showed before, and the list also asynchronous because it changes the state. So we're gonna check if the list is from the to-do list. To-do list. If it is, I'm gonna tell the program to, hey, set this state for me. Change the state of this object for me. This this variable for me. To-do list, we're gonna it's from the to-do list. We're gonna remove from the to-do list, right? So you remove where. Remove where the element is equal to the title. So it checks whether the element title is equal to the user input title, the task. I'm gonna remove it. And if it's not from the if it's not from the to-do list, I'm gonna check if it's from the completed list. And it's the same thing. Just copy this. And instead of to-do list, we're gonna remove it from the completed list. Easy, right? So hold on. Right. If hold on just a second. Let's remove that for now. Let's check if this works first. So we're gonna restart our phone, restart our app. Gonna let it load. Also, don't worry if any of you encounter any errors. It's very normal in programming. Yeah, like what happened just now. So since it's from the to-do list, it will be able to delete. But if it's from the completed list, I haven't added the function for that yet. Can't delete as of yet. So in the if statement, right. Else if 3, same thing. List is equal to 2. Completed list. And set state completed list. I'm gonna remove it from the completed list. Remove where the element equal to the title. Yeah, that should finish off the application. gonna perform one last restart and make sure it's functioning properly. So let's say you have 3 tasks to do, right? 1, 2, and 3. Repeat. So yeah, you can eat and you can delete. You're done eating, you're done sleeping. You can do that. You can check and uncheck and delete. So that's basically it for the to-do list. Very simple. Y'all can ask any questions if y'all have any doubts. And that basically concludes my section of this workshop. I hope you all learned something. Yeah, and I think I'll be passing on the time back to Ken to gather up all the speakers back. Yeah, and to end of the session.
Okay, thank you, Daniel, for the workshop. So we have come to the end of the practical portion of this event. Now we will be gathering all of our speakers for the Q&A session. Okay, so for the first question, someone asked, how do you decide to use which kind of widget? Would any one of the speakers take this question?
Yeah, sure. So how when programming, we can decide what widget we want to use. We can actually refer to the Flutter documentation to see what widget we need. So in the application to-do list that we just built out, we know that we need a alert dialog widget, for example, to prompt the user for input. That can also be found in the Flutter documentation. Yep.
Okay,
Hopefully
thank
that
you,
answers your
Edwin.
question.
Thank you, Edwin, for the answer. Okay, we're looking at the next question. So what does an underscore in a widget name do?
I can answer that. In coding conventions, right, how coders usually signify where a variable is private is with underscores. For example, in Python, underscoring a variable in a class would turn into a private variable where you can't access it anywhere in the program other than through the class methods.
Okay, thank you, Derek, for the answer. Daniel and Edwin, do you have any other opinions regarding this question?
No, I think Derek explained it quite well enough. Yeah.
Okay. We will move on
Yep.
to the next question. So what is a future widget?
I think I can answer that. Future widget is basically like you're getting input like so-called from the future. Like let's say the user input, right? You're getting the user input like from the future and building it like and displaying it on the screen later on. I hope that answers your question.
Would the other two speakers have anything to fill in?
No, I think Daniel explained it pretty sufficiently.
Okay.
From my side, I think like you also should mention that it determines like the current state of the app as well.
Okay. Thanks for answering, everyone. Moving on to the next question. All right, someone asked, why use Flutter if there is Kotlin?
I'll answer that. There are actually many reasons. When compared to Kotlin, although they are from the same company made by Google, there are some slight differences in, for example, the performance, where in Flutter, you'll be great. You will have great performance when trying to use the hot reload feature. So the app updates quite fast when you modify the code, and it shows on the app uh, in quite a fast speed. Then with Flutter, there's a more comprehensive documentation to it with like very detailed uh, explanation on most of the widgets, whereas Kotlin does not have many of such documentations. And compared to Kotlin, Flutter's UI design has more extensive customization features, although Kotlin do still provide a great UI experience. That's all from my part.
Okay, thank you, Derek, for answering.
Yeah. I saw this question in the YouTube chat asking if there's source code for this. I had already replied in the chat that we will be releasing the source code after the workshop, but adding it on, we will be uploading it to our GitHub, and we'll be updating the link in the description after we are done with it.
Okay, so we have a question. Does Flutter have its own programming language, or does it use another language like Java or Python?
I can answer that. Basically, Flutter uses a Google developed programming language called Dart. That's why the file name is called main.dart. It's very similar to like Java and C style syntax. So if you have a basic understanding of Java, then and other programming languages, especially C, you'll be able to learn Dart pretty quickly. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Daniel, for answering the question. Okay, moving on to our next question. How do we compare Flutter versus Xamarin? Will anyone of the speakers answer the question?
I can fill in a bit. Talking about the cons of Xamarin, it is open source framework, so it's free. However, the for building commercial apps is quite different because like it requires you to use the Microsoft Visual Studio IDE, which may be quite expensive. And compared to Flutter, Xamarin code is sort of locked in. So it can only be used within the .NET development stack only. It can't be used in any other technology stack. That's all from my side. Is there anything you're adding on, Avi and Daniel?
And I think it should be fine. Yeah.
Yep, pretty comprehensive.
Okay, thank you all for answering. Okay, chat. We are still taking questions. If you have any more questions, you can write in to chat right now. Okay, we have a question that's asking whether we will award certificates for this workshop. Officially, we won't award certificates. But regarding CCA points, you have to check in with the respective leads of your university. Okay, we have a new question. Okay, Kasi, we will send you a Google Meet link to help you with the setup. Okay, so there aren't any more. We have one more question. What is the difference between Flutter and Kotlin? Okay, so there aren't any more. We have one more question. What is the difference? Would any one of the speakers like to elaborate?
As I mentioned before just now, that like one of the main difference that I find are the amount of resources given to learn the language itself. When you're using Flutter, there's more detailed documentation from setting it up all the way to learning its widgets in detail. It's all given on the Flutter documentation. Whereas Kotlin does not have as much resources for you to learn. So when comparing Flutter to Kotlin, I would suggest you to learn Flutter first instead of Kotlin if you're first starting out.
Okay,
I
thank
think,
you, Derek. Sorry.
sorry.
Please
To add
continue.
on, I think there's no best choice between like Flutter or Kotlin. You can decide based on your own personal situation, as both Flutter and Kotlin are supported by Google. But then if you are like a startup or you have a smaller team, Flutter is better as it has lower costs and allows you to create multiple apps with just one code base, therefore requiring less time and developer. However, Kotlin is great if you are working with any existing Java codes, but then it may be harder to find experienced developer. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for answering. This is the end of this session. But before we go, we have an announcement from Shafiq. Hi, Shafiq.
Audible, Ken. Hi, Ken. Am I audible?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. I think the session was so interesting. Um, so thanks for the session, and I will just make the announcement now. So me and Kent are current leads, and we are going to finish off our term soon. So maybe I can have Kent on screen as well, so we can share a little bit about our experience as a DSC lead, and you can get to know about a few things from each other, and also about the next recruitment. Okay, so let me just quickly share my screen. Give me a while. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Okay, in the meantime, maybe I can ask Ken some question. So Ken,
Yeah, sure.
what do you feel about developers student club? What is your experience as a lead, and what is one thing that that you have improved over the period of 1 year?
So far, my experience in DSC has been very interesting because right from the start, uh, we have been dealing with COVID, a lot of disruptions as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very interesting to try and solve all the challenges from having to move virtually online, having to recreate all of the way we do all of our workshops.
Mm-hmm.
It's been difficult to transition, but it's been very fruitful. We are able to connect with a lot more people now than compared to real life workshops.
I see. Okay, so let me ask a couple of questions as well, and also I will share about my experience as well. So for me, DSC have did a lot, just like how you and your DSC went as well. So for mine, I was the first person who started the DSC in my campus, so it was very challenging in the beginning to move from physical events to virtual event, as Kent mentioned, but we managed to do it, and currently this event also virtual. So yeah, it is quite challenging, but it is manageable and it is possible. So let me ask Ken a couple of questions. So Ken, do you want to share one of the most memorable event that you have organized in your DSC?
I think one of the most memorable events we held so far was
Mm-hmm.
a series of workshops we called Tech Week. It was 3 days filled with 5 workshops, about 2 workshops per day. It
I
was
see.
very insane. We had to do multiple workshops in one day. It's something we didn't do before. Uh,
I see.
and we had to get a lot of people to help us, from publicity to trying to hold the workshops and trying to schedule the timings for workshops so that they don't clash. It
I
was
see.
one of our biggest events so far.
Mm. All right. So from my point of view, one of the biggest event that I did and one memorable event is recently we organized an hackathon, which is IDathon 2021, which is a 9-day event, and that's the one of the memorable event. We had like 750 participants and speakers from all around the world and teams from all the DSCs, even including NYP. The DSC members joined. So yeah, that's one of the most memorable event that we had. Okay, let me ask one more question. So when you applied for the DSC's program, what was your motivation in the beginning?
I wanted to try something new, I guess, because
Mhm.
when the previously approached me to ask me to apply for a DSC lead, I was actually very hesitant at first. Like, I wasn't sure if I could carry the responsibility.
I
But I
see.
realized after becoming lead that, you know, there are a lot of more opportunities given to us, given to myself as well,
Hmm.
to hold workshops, to get resources from Google,
Hmm.
to help students to continue to grow their skills. Yeah.
Right. So let's say if you are a new lead and you're going to apply, I mean, yeah, if you're a student who going to apply to be the lead for the next year, what's the one thing that you will try your best, or what's the one mistake that you will avoid? This can be a tip for the future leads who are applying for this year.
Probably if I was the next lead. Uh, it's a very hard question.
Just think
COVID is
about it,
still
just like what's the
yeah.
one mistake that you have, did in your beginning, and if you're a new person, I mean, if you had the chance to apply for the lead again, what's the mistake that you will avoid?
Okay, there's one very big mistake that I've
Mm-hmm.
probably made. That is, not cooperating with, not say cooperating, more of trying to get your faculty to help as well.
I see.
Because I tried as much as possible to
Mm-hmm.
do things within the club, but of course that's not how things work in the world. You need to cooperate with other people to get things done. Don't try to carry everything on yourself.
Yeah, I agree as well with your points. I think it's more important that to get the support from the team as well as to get the support from school. Both of us, I mean, both of that are, they both are like a pillar of support for you to run your DSC as a lead. If you don't get a support from your team, you will suffer as well. And if you don't get a support from your university, it will also like a disadvantage for you. So try your best to get support from both sides. So yeah. Okay, let's end off the session with some tips from Kent and me. So Kent, before we end the session, what's the one tip that you would like to give to the DAC leads who are applying for this year? Not one tip, maybe few tips.
Okay, so let's say if you do get selected as lead, I think one of the first things you should do is get together with your core team, have a meeting together to discuss the mission and vision of your club, because
Mhm.
that's the feel of your club, that's the aim of your club. If you don't have a mission, your club will be aimless. You will probably not be able to do a lot because you don't have a direction to run towards.
Mhm.
My second tip would be try to have a club schedule. Let's say, try to run a workshop once every 2 months, or, try to get speakers to come from Google probably every month. Yeah, just try to have something run.
All right. Yep. Thank you so much, Ken, for the answer and for the tips. So, yep, I think we have came to the end of the segment. And I hope you all got so much insights from the Flutter crash course from the beginning. And to end of this, I would like to share the things that is currently happening in DSC. So our term is going to end in Singapore, and all of us are going to finish our term as a lead. And currently, the lead recruitment is going on. So you have heard all the insights from both of us, what we have, gained, or what are the benefits we got, and what are the things that we have experienced as a lead. And if you would like to be the lead for the next time, please do apply by going to this link, goo.gle/DSC leads. So there are a lot of benefits as mentioned in the slides, apart from what we have shared. And the lead recruitment for Singapore will be ending in May 15th. And I think only 8 DSCs are in Singapore. So if you are a student from Temasek Polytechnic, Singapore Polytechnic, or Republic Polytechnic, Nanyang Polytechnic, or any other universities or institutions from Singapore, you can apply to start your own club at your campus, just like how I did. I don't have a DSC previously, so I started my own, and this is our first year. And for Ken, he already started, and is it second or third year, Ken, for you?
I think this is my second
Yeah.
year as lead.
So yeah, you can also um, be the lead in the existing DSC, and you can also start your own DSCs in your campus. So yeah, that's the end of the session. So thank you so much. Signing off, Shafiq and Ken from DSC Singapore. So bye bye. Have a nice day. Bye, Ken.
Goodbye.
Google Developer Student Clubs train hundreds of thousands of university student developers globally while having fun getting to know other students at their school. Google selects students with strong leadership skills from across the globe once a year to start a club on their campus. These leads believe knowledge is power and that technology can do extraordinary things for the world. They take on the responsibility to help students learn and empower each other to solve real problems around them. Students can participate in the annual Solution Challenge by Google developers to solve for one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Join us in building a global community for students in technology.